Come on, Livingston. We gotta go on and on and on. Together we can make it. We gotta go on and on and on. Come on, Livingston.
Knocks it through. Mullen bursting into the box. Josh Mullen.
Together we can make it.
Mullen's ball across, it's turned in! It's Pittman who's got it! Livingston leads!
Road is long.
Can they get the ball back in? O'Brien.
Lead! And Livingston have the lead!
Man, can score.
If we march together.
The full-time whistle blows and David Hayes celebrates! And the Livingston fans join in exultation.
Come on, Livingston.
Livingston have the lead against Rangers, and they are certainly rising to a few occasions on their return to the top flight in Scotland.
Come on, Livingston. We gotta go.
Hello, you're listening to Talk Livi, the podcast dedicated to West Lothian's finest football team, Livingston Football Club, and proudly sponsored by Starnet Apparel. My name's Angus, and today I'm joined by Euan. Euan, how are you doing, mate?
I'm all good, mate. I'm all good. There's plenty of goals to talk about on this week's podcast, which, probably looking back about 3-4 months ago, we wouldn't have been able to say it. Would have been a lot of nils in the Livingston column. But sadly, there was a significant number of goals against. So it was only a point on the board for our two teams. Our women's side managed to rescue a point over in the capital at Meadowbank at the weekend. But yeah, we'll come on and talk about the collapse at Tynecastle in the space of 15 minutes as well. But yeah, all good apart from that, mate. What about yourself?
Just plodding along. At least we have like the sweet release that, the confirmation of relegation will be coming pretty soon, I would imagine. Just, really scattered with this season. Looking forward to it being kind of over, to be honest with you. But yeah, I'm pretty sure that we're going to dive right into that when talking about the Hearts game. But as always, you can search for Talk Livi on your preferred podcast streaming site where you can follow or subscribe so you don't miss an episode. You can also catch all our episodes that we've ever done on to date there as well.
We'll kick the episode off by discussing Livi's defeat at Tynecastle, as despite storming into a 2-0 lead, the Lions would fall to defeat against Hearts.
It'd be another goal fest in the capital on the Sunday as the Lionesses left it late to rescue a point against Boroughmuir Thistle. We'll discuss the talking points from the game.
And finally, we look ahead to our first game of the split, which could confirm our return to the Championship against Ross County in West Lothian.
The Lions went to Tynecastle looking to cause an upset, and it was actually on the cards when Stephen Kelly fired a double in to have us 2-0 up. However, a 15-minute collapse before half-time would see Hearts running with a 4-2 victory. What an absolute shambles, right, Euan?
Yeah, I mean, just when we went 2-0 up, I out loud said, I don't trust this group of players. And I can see this being at least 3-2 very shortly. And as soon as we conceded that first goal, it just seemed like heads went down and it felt like a very much inevitable outcome that was going to come from the game. Despite what was a very good start, I thought we looked a good threat in terms, especially with the ball over the top. I think Hearts were really, really struggling with that. We kind of spoke about how Hearts have alternated between a back three, a back four. It was a back four at the weekend there, and I think Kent and Rose were struggling a little bit with that ball over the top, and that's kind of where our first opportunity comes in the game with Tete Yenge, gets in behind, just doesn't really connect with it, and it's an easy, comfortable save for Craig Gordon. But we do take the lead in spectacular circumstances as well. Stephen Kelly, he loves a goal at Tynecastle, it appears. He loves a cracking goal at Tynecastle as well. Again, it was that ball over the top. Mackay's put a bit of pressure on Craig Gordon, who was back in goals after a bit of time out. I think it's one of his first league starts since his horror leg break that he had. But the clearance fell to Stephen Kelly, and it's a tremendous finish by Stephen. on his weak side. He's under pressure as well when that ball comes back to him. It's not like he's got a great deal of time to think about it, and he's managed to lob it into the far corner, and we're a goal ahead. And I think in terms of how we started the game, we probably deserved that at that point. We had another chance with Stephen Kelly, albeit I think it was pulled back for a foul in the build-up with Scott Pittman. And then Stephen Kelly gets his second goal. Again, it's a good bit of pressure at the top end of the park from Tete Yenge, which wins the ball back. It falls to Stephen Kelly, and he's managed to wrap his foot round it, pull it in towards that near post, and beats Craig Gordon down to his right. And we're absolutely flying at that point. But as I say, I don't trust this team. I just don't trust this team to keep anyone out. And see, at this point in the game, Hearts had done nothing in terms of causing us a threat. I think we were very much worthy of our 2-0 lead at this point.
Yeah, just before you get into before this takes like the sudden dive off of a cliff that we know it's going to take. Yeah, genuinely about 22 minutes of our best performance this season, I would say. The pressing was all there. I don't know if that would have been caught as much as watching it from like a highlights package and stuff like that. But the amount of issues that we were causing the Hearts by getting in their face and stuff like that, it was absolutely tremendous. The likes of like Pitts, Brandon, Holt, and stuff like that, nicking the ball every time, weren't giving them a second's space to get comfortable or anything like that. So you're kind of looking at that as well. That people might have been looking at, the two kind of goals and think it's a bit of a smash and grab. We were very, very worthy of it, and we're playing some of our best stuff of the entire season, which then makes this next part even more kind of hard to digest, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the first goal, it's from a Hearts perspective, some really good football in the build-up. I think it's Mackay plays that little ball outside his foot, albeit not enough pressure put on the ball for me. Shankland's then got in behind. And I'll kind of compliment Shankland. I've said this before on the podcast. I always had in my head he was a bit of a goal hanger, kind of in between the posts. But I think Shankland's game's evolved a lot. And I think it's really clever what he does. He drops off into areas where a centre-half's not going to go and follow him or keep track of him. And he drops off into these little pockets, and it almost gives him extra space to operate, and it gets him into areas where he is unmarked. But he manages to get in behind us. Devlin, for me, he's caught ball watching. He's getting dragged towards the ball out wide with Mackay, and Shankland's taking a decent first touch.
I
And
think
Grant
what you
stabbed it
just
in.
said there as to how, defenders aren't going to get dragged out into those areas, Devlin, for some reason, got dragged out even more so,
Yeah.
leaving, all the space in the world for him in the box.
Yeah. And that's, as I say, Devlin just gets drawn to the ball a little bit. And as I say, Shankland's, by dropping off, he finds little areas of space that he can move into. And, it's as I say, it's a good first touch, and Grant's managed to stab it home. Second goal comes pretty shortly after that. And for me, it's harder for Ayo to miss that header than actual make contact with it. I don't understand. He's caught, it looks like almost a good yard under the ball. But then part of the problem is Devlin's going towards the ball. Ayo's then gone as well, which has left that chasm of space in behind for Shankland to run into. Now, one of them needs to drop. That's a basic of being a centre half. If one centre half goes to the ball, the other one has to drop off. Now, for me, Devlin's made the move initially. Ayo needs to drop. Ayo's then committed to it as well, which has left our centre halves in no man's land if that ball goes over the top. And then Shankland ran in behind, he squared it for Oda, and it's almost a kind of identical. The three goals are almost carbon copies, all kind of similar areas, all from that left-hand side. And we did have a little chance in between. Again, I think there might have been it looked like a foul was given when Nottingham had a header that went just past the post. And then Cammy Devlin gets the third goal. Again, it's poor from our point of view. Ball's gone out to the left-hand side. It's a decent ball across the 6-yard box by Alex Cochrane. But for me, Stephen Kelly needs to track the run of Cammy Devlin a lot better. I spoke about it in previous weeks with David Carson, not recognising that danger. And Stephen's let Cammy Devlin run off him in that instance, and they've got that goal. And then on to the last bit of catastrophic defending for the fourth goal. I mean, it's just, It's so slack, so slack. Not under any pressure at all in that instance, Mikey Devlin. And he's knocked the header short for Shamal George, and he's basically given Shamal pretty much no other option than to take Oda out, and then Shankland's dispatched the penalty. That goal for me is the absolute killer, because that's right on the stroke of half time. We give away that fourth goal. If we're a goal down, you're still in the game, at least for me. You're still in it. But that goal must have been an absolute sickener right on the stroke of half time. And it's so avoidable. So avoidable. It's. We'll come on to talk about a couple of stats I pulled together between the difference between before the winter break and after it. But those goals, I mean, I feel for the manager in a way, because he must be ripping what very little hair he has left out watching mistakes like that. There's only so much you can coach. And players need to take a bit of responsibility in that instance for me. Because that's, as I say, we'll come on to the second half. I think we kept ourselves in the game. We had a couple of half chances. Yengi had one, which there's a block kind of put in. Michael Nottingham had a header that was glanced over the bar as well, which I think he should probably do slightly better with, if I'm honest. And then there's the red card for Tete Yengi, which means he's going to miss the game at the weekend there. He got a yellow card for a reaction to a decision in the first half, and then gets a second yellow card once he's already off the park for kicking a water bottle into a dugout. To be brutally honest with you, I think it's petty by the referee, if I'm honest. I don't think there's a need to go and pull out another yellow card. How many times do you see a player walk off the park or chuck something down or kick a water bottle? It happens all the time. And very rarely do you see a yellow card come out for it. And I just think I know the manager, and again, it will be something I'll come on to talk about, but he really laid into Tete Yengi for it. Albeit Hearts' second half, I don't think created a great deal. There was one that Shankland had that was tipped onto the bar, deflected shot that was tipped onto the bar by Shamal George. Cammy Devlin had one he probably should do a little bit better with. And then probably our best chance of the second half was probably about 5 or 10 minutes left to go, where Dan Mackay's got the ball and it's come onto his left side. Probably needs to show a little bit more composure, and he's sclaffed it high and wide in the end. But I think there was aspects to like of our performance, but the defending was just no other way to put it than abysmal.
Yeah, I think it's not quite as bad as that Hibs game, I would say, but the defending is probably as bad or even worse, in all honesty. The overall performance in that Hibs game was just absolutely diabolical from start to finish. We did at least kind of start off positively here, but yeah, as you say, for all four of those goals, absolutely embarrassing. The second one, what on earth's happened there? Even the third one as well, you know, the balls went out wide and nobody's even reacting to go into that front post, even just covering the space after you conceded 2 goals down that side in the exact same way. And then the last one, yeah, laughable. And I think that the similarity between this and that Hibs game, and then going back to that Motherwell game, you know, a couple of months ago as well, is that I think both teams knew the game was done. So that's why they just took their foot off the gas. And, you know, we've had a couple of more chances and stuff like that, sure, but the game's finished. And in all honesty, Euan, say we take those 2 chances, all it would take for Hearts to do would just to turn it on a little bit more and would give them another goal, wouldn't it? So, like, at the end of the day, you know, we've got what we deserve because, you know, we're just failed to defend it. And it's absolutely ludicrous, you know, watching this team right now in terms of that defensive kind of aspect. And it's such a tough watch and ruined what was, you know, a very, very positive kind of start to the game and stuff like that. But not one for us to remember for too long. I believe you have some stats for us.
First thing I'll go on to talk about is the manager's post-match after the game, and I tweeted about it, I think Sunday afternoon after I kind of got round to listening to it. And for me, it's baffling. It's baffling. There's been quite a few occasions this season where he's left, especially players in the attacking third of the pitch, out to dry. He's done it on multiple occasions with Bruce Anderson. And this weekend was another one very similar. He, by name, mentions how Yengi, multiple times mentions Yengi. mentions how Dan Mackay missed an opportunity. Now, if you look at the chances he had in the game, Yengi has one at 0-0. He has one at 4-2 down, and Mackay's one comes at 4-2 down as well. For me, I wouldn't say they're pivotal moments in the game, especially when we've gone racing into a 2-0 lead shortly after Yengi's first chance. And he almost skirts over the defensive mistakes for the goals. Doesn't mention any players by name, and then proceeds to talk about the second half, and then praises, and again by name, praises Devlin and Obalai for their second half performance. Now, I'm sorry. See, for me, that game is not... The outcome of that game is not on the attacking third of the pitch. For me, you've gone and scored 2 goals at Tynecastle, which I think, if I'm right in saying, is the first time we've done that since 2002, when we last won there. So the players in the attacking third of the pitch, for me, have done their job. Albeit they have missed a couple of chances, but it's going to happen. For me, it's the players in that back four who have not done their job. And they should be getting hung out to dry. And they've not been. And I think that's poor man management, if I'm totally honest. You've got guys like Yengi, who is under contract for next season. I don't know what clauses he maybe has in his deal. Dan Mackay, I believe there is actually an option to keep Dan Mackay, but whether that would come to fruition with us going down, I highly doubt that. But for me, it's poor management and poor analysis of the game, if I'm totally honest. To compliment the 2 centre halves for their performance in the second half after the goals that they've conceded, I can't understand how you can come to that conclusion, if I'm honest. I really can't. But a couple other things I kind of looked at, and it was the difference. I've said on the podcast, we've both said it on the podcast, that since the winter break we have offered a better threat going forward. And I was almost after the game intrigued to see what our stats looked like kind of before and after the winter break. And prior to the winter break, we'd scored 12 goals in 21 games, which was averaging out at 0.57 goals per game. Compare that to the second half of the season, we've scored 10 goals in 12, so it's 0.83, so we're closer to a goal a game second half of the season. But the flip side of that is defensively, and that kind of highlights this weekend as well. First half of the season, 32 goals conceded in 21, it was 1.5 goals a game, 1.52 goals a game. 27 goals conceded in 12 games since the winter break in the league. That's just the league, by the way, all those stats. 2.25 goals per game. Is there an element that you sit back and look at that and the manager wanting to be more solid? Is that because he didn't trust the group of players that he had defensively?
It must be. I think that he's maybe clocked on early that we're in trouble and tried to just put bodies behind it and stuff like that. But in a way, could you really kind of blame him, considering, some of the defensive performances that we've ended up seeing, especially kind of after this winter break. But then again, that comes down to the recruitment kind of side. You've had, a whole bunch of players come in. How many of them have actually been successes? Some of the players who have been, somewhat successes, you would say, have been kind of like shipped out the door. Go back to the start of the season, Morgan Boy's allowed to go if you're playing with a back three, needing a left-footed centre half. Why was there not an option there? De Lucas, for how much of a Effie Ambrose-esque he could be, was probably one of our best players at the start of the season, to be fair. Shipped off immediately following a couple of mistakes. The decision to extend Tom Parks' contract is maybe one of the worst decisions that the club's ever made. And then, you look at the host of signings who have came in. Sean Donnellan's barely kicked the ball. Michael Devlin and Michael Nottingham, it's not really worked out, to say the least. I don't know how quickly Davies maybe caught on to this and figured out that they're maybe in trouble if you don't put a wee bit more emphasis on the back line and try and defend it. But does that also get counteracted by the fact that, go to Saturday, for example, we have David Carson on the bench who could play centre mid. We've got Jamie Brandon playing in centre mid right now, who's a natural right back. Not anything to do with how Jamie Brandon's been playing or anything like that, but we know that Jamie Brandon's a solid right back. Could we at least have one solid defender in that back line if we're going to try and sharpen up a little bit? where you can have, somebody in the midfield who's still going to be combative and everything like that. I don't know. But as you said, with the post-match kind of interviews and stuff like that, doesn't seem to be much of a critique for the back line, even though they've continually sold us out.
Yeah, absolutely. Kind of touching on Jamie Brandon there, he was apparently a bit walking wounded at the weekend there after he came off in the game against Aberdeen. He hadn't trained most of the week and was starting the game. I don't know what the issue is with David Carson. He wasn't starting the game. I would imagine if he was fully fit, I think he's been reasonable since coming in at the tail end of January, albeit there's been a couple of instances where I think he needs to be a bit more alert in terms of tracking a runner here or there. But you kind of sit back and think, why, if Jamie's fit enough to go and play the game, if David Carson's fit enough to come on and play part of the game, why don't you put Jamie into his natural position? Michael Nottingham struggled at right back. He struggled most of the season. But it almost comes across to me like the manager has a bit of favourites, a little bit, in terms of how he analyses the games at times and how certain players are kind of left hung out to dry.
That's what makes it even more frustrating for a supporter, is then when you've watched a game and you've seen, undeniably what the kind of the issue has been, and then the opposite is kind of hailed. You're just like, are we getting taken the piss out of here? To be honest, to put it bluntly.
Yeah, but let's be honest, we weren't going to Tynecastle expecting to take anything from the game, but the manner in which we've gone there has managed to surprise us yet again in terms of racing into that 2-0 lead. Such a positive start to the game. Really good aspects of our performance to like, but then a 15-minute capitulation sees Hearts come away with a comfortable 3 points in the end, and we'll come on to talk about what could be the actual final nail in our coffin shortly when we play Ross County. We're delighted to have Strana Apparel as sponsors of Talk Livi. UK based with a Swedish soul, we are Strana. Strana is an independent fashion brand from Scotland who create high quality and stylish attire for on and off the terraces. Inspired by terrace culture, lifestyle and music, all their clothing is designed using quality materials and workmanship to combine the very best style and fit. All of this means you get a premium quality fashion at affordable prices while enjoying a simple and secure service.
As a bonus for Talk Livi listeners, you can get 10% off your order using the code TalkLivi at the checkout. We'll also have some exclusive giveaways during the season, so keep your eyes peeled on our socials for those too. And thanks to Strana for sponsoring Talk Livi.
Conor McCluskey took the reins as the Lionesses headed to the capital to take on Boroughmuir Thistle at Meadowbank. Despite leading at half-time through a double from Ashley Elizabeth, it would take a last-minute equaliser from Lauren Evans to rescue a point in a pretty exciting 3-3 draw. Angus, definitely plenty to talk about from this game. I wasn't there. I saw Conor's tweet after the game talking about a Stonewall penalty being denied at some point in the game as well, and a red card. But Conor getting back involved, obviously, with Mike and Jordan's departure last week. Conor had obviously been well ingrained in the women's setup before, kind of leaving in the summer there. So it was kind of a pretty natural person to come in and take the reins on the interim basis, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. A guy who's been there before knows, a good bulk of the team and stuff like that. And yeah, just kind of like a positive kind of personality and stuff like that, which you may need at these kind of times where there is a bit of transition, a bit of change and stuff like that. So I think you could kind of see that, to be fair. There was a little bit of a lift in this kind of match day, within the players and stuff like that, kind of like spirits and stuff. So I guess that's like a positive thing that he's managed to do, in the time that he's helped out. And yeah, I think that everybody at the club will be grateful for him being able to step in and, lend his expertise, even just for kind of one match there. But to be fair, he had a bit of a pickle because, a whole host of first team players were unavailable. Jen's out, extensively with a an ankle injury. Captain Natasha Frew dropped out the morning of it through illness. There was no Beth Mackay, no Lucy Watt, no Anna Dickov. Yeah, there's a whole host of players who were kind of absent there. Again, we only kind of really had a handful of substitutes, two of them being goalkeepers, Lauren Evans being one, and then kind of youth players as well. So it's not the ideal kind of situation to be coming into.
His team essentially picked itself then. That was an easy task for him.
Yeah, exactly. I think that there was a couple of different formations that they were maybe planning on doing. It ended up with Euan Murphy dropping into right centre half, kind of an unfamiliar position, but, a player who's more than happy to do their bit to help out and stuff like that as well. But I actually do think that we played very well. First half, I think that, it's become quite a thing at Meadowbank right now where the conditions can really, really play a part on it. I think it was last weekend or 2 weekends ago that a game was abandoned about 20 odd minutes in because, it must be where the stadium's located, and it's kind of like a bowl kind of situation where it's down from a lot of the kind of surrounding areas, and if the wind is in there, it can cause havoc. We had the wind kind of aiding us in that first half, and it allowed us to kind of push up the pitch more. And, I think we were pressing quite high in there as well, winning the ball high up the pitch. And I think that's essentially how we ended up getting the 2 goals. The first one, it's quite patient play, works its way to Ashley Elizabeth, and she just fires it. It's just one of those shots that as soon as it leaves her foot, you just knew it was sailing into that top corner and the keeper had no chance. So that was, again, great for her. 7th goal this season, her 51st overall. Boroughmuir, however, would literally go right up the park and do the exact carbon copy of a finish. To be honest with you, the lassie really, really took her goal well. I think it was a right back as well, Katie McCabe. So that made it 1-1. But we were able to get the lead just before half-time again. Sharon Hughes-Lee with a second assist, 2 assists for Sharon for Ash's goals. A header is missed by 2 of the Boroughmuir players, and Ash, shows great composure to lift the ball over the goalkeeper and make it 2-1. But yeah, as you kind of alluded to there as well, there was a bit of a strange kind of decision where Hannah Davey nicks the ball off of the Boroughmuir centre half, and she begins to get tugged as she's running in, continues into the box, and that's when the player brings her down. Last man as well. The referee opted for a free kick, and the linesman also on that side didn't deem it as a penalty either, which is surprising. I thought under the new rules that's the way it kind of worked these now. But
my understanding is if the foul continues into the box, in that situation, it would be given as a penalty, is my understanding of it as well.
Yeah, and then you're looking at it, right, cool, if it's a free kick then as well, then she's surely got to get her marching orders, right, because she's advancing into the goal. There's another centre half who's at the other opposite corner of the box who's been occupied by Ashley Elizabeth as well. There's a clear goal scoring opportunity there for us to kind of get into, and then also add on to the fact that the players made no attempt to win the ball either. So if you still take the player out in the box, last player, it's a red card. So I don't understand quite what has transpired there, that the referee's he's obviously punished them for the free kick, but he's not given the actual real punishment to the team that it probably merited. So I guess there'll be a little bit of frustration there, because that could ultimately be game changing. If you score that penalty, go 3-1 in at half time, and they're down to 10 players, that's massive, isn't it? That is completely, Boroughmuir would have to completely alter their kind of game plan, especially if it being a centre half getting taken off. They would have to maybe sacrifice an attacking player and whatnot. But yeah, for some reason the referee and the lineswomen both failed to spot that on that side, which is hard to take when it's kind of an obvious kind of error like that. But in the second half, I think it was a bit more of a battle for us again. Talking about the wind and stuff like that, I think that kind of pegged us in a little bit. It's like Molly Reeve trying to take goal kicks, and they're kind of coming back, maybe about 10 yards short, because the wind's just kind of catching it and halting it in its progress. Molly would make a good couple of saves, because I think that Boroughmuir were definitely told, from range, if you can get a shot away in these conditions, it's a worthy effort. There was one that she just really quite funnily just punched, just fully laid back, she was like Mike Tyson, and just punched away. Asked her about it at the end of the game, and she was like, well, did it go in? And no, she's absolutely right, she made the save, and that's all that matters, to be honest with you. That wouldn't fly in my goalkeeping school though, Euan. I would look for the goalkeeper to catch that, to be fair. But Boroughmuir would get a goal back, and we tap in at the back post before taking the lead only like a minute or so afterwards. They got a corner, and again the windy conditions have played its part here, and it just manages to curl in at the front post of Aidan Bryony Ross and Molly Reeve there as well. So that seemed like a bit of a sucker punch in all honesty. I don't think that we deserve to be going down in the game at all. And, in those kind of moments, you're not too sure if you're going to get back into the game, especially if you'd kind of struggled to kind of create chances throughout the match. But, we did get that late equaliser. I think it was a free kick from Jess Murphy. Again, the Boroughmuir team were unable to deal with this ball through. Falls nicely to Lauren Evans, who's managed to poke it beyond the goalkeeper and make it 3 each for a very dramatic finale. We'll take the point away from home. Maybe a little bit disappointed to not have taken all 3, considering the position that it would have been at, come like the 75th minute or so, and, just the general performance in general, as well as, that kind of incident that happened earlier in the game. But, considering, the lack of bodies that we had and stuff like that, I think that the effort there was very good for the most part for, a lot of players, playing through the pain barrier at times and that as well. I know Courtney McAvoy got like a bit of a knock in that and was kind of had to continue on. 2 young lassies, I think Olivia Murphy making her debut as well as Cody Bell coming on. So yeah, it's a tough place to kind of go. Boroughmuir being a decent team, we haven't beat them this season. I mean, so considering the circumstances, I think you'll take a point.
Yeah, and just kind of looking at the league table overall, I believe Queen's Park secured the league title at the weekend and promotion to SWPL 1, which I think is very well deserved. They've been by far and away the best side in the league this season, and I'm sure you'd probably agree when going to games over the course of the campaign as well. But Kilmarnock suffered a surprise home defeat to Glasgow Women, which does actually mean we closed the gap to them to 6 points. Still got that 4-point cushion over Boroughmuir and St Johnstone, and it's St Johnstone next up at the Tony Mac, isn't it? Well, the Tony Mac.
Almondvale,
the home of the Set Fair, the Cab Nou, which it will now be affectionately referred to as. But yes, that's our next game, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think that'll be an interesting one. I think we've played 4 times already this season, because one of them was in the Cup, and they've all been kind of, I was literally going to say they've all been kind of close games there.
Is it not a 5-0 victory?
We won 5-0. Yeah. The first one was 3-2. I believe that the other one was 4-2. And then I think the last one they beat us 2-0 or 2-1, I believe. So other than that Cup game, I believe that they've all been quite fiercely battled kind of games. I think that they did get quite the better of us that last time though. So hopefully we'll be looking out to exact some revenge on that. I think that they are a team who has mightily improved though through the season. When you talk about that game that we beat them 5-0 to then go up to their park and for them to turn us over quite comfortably 2-0. So I think we'll be aware that they have a couple of threats and stuff like that as well. I think that their player, I think it's Ellie Cowie, is the player of the month for last month or something like that as well. So definitely a threat on that wing. I think that St Johnstone have got quite a few pacey kind of athletic players that we'll definitely need to keep an eye on. But yeah, I think that we should have confidence in our own ability though. Hopefully we'll have a couple more bodies back. Hopefully not so many holidays are happening on April whatever, the 19th or something like that. But yeah, I think it'll be a good game, and hopefully ones that people can come down. There's no men's game this weekend. Why not come down and support the team against a decent side in St Johnstone as well?
Yeah, absolutely. And is there any news on the managerial front? How's our application progressing as the new management team?
I feel like I've been rejected. I'm not going to lie to you, Euan. But I believe that let me see. Let me check my messages right now, because I think that there is something in the process that is going to get posted, but I have no idea when that has been scheduled to do so. So I will play it safe and not say it on this just yet, so we don't end up getting ourselves in hot ball or myself in hot ball. But I believe it is somebody with a connection to somebody who used to play for the club. I believe is the candidate, and somebody I believe that actually quite well. So I guess we'll see if that is what comes to fruition, and if they're in charge on Sunday or anything like that, then wish them the absolute best, and look forward to meeting them. The post-split fixtures have been announced, and it is Ross County who will be the first visitors to West Lothian following the return to action in the Scottish Premiership. This is going to be, a very crucial match, Euan, because, if Ross County win this, we will simply be relegated. I watched riding on this, right?
It is
Or is
quite.
it because it's already done, basically?
I don't know how many times we've said since January, that's our final nail in the coffin, that's our final nail in the coffin, that's our final nail in the coffin.
I
Ross
think
County can quite literally put the final nail in our Premiership coffin.
they're the final sprig of dirt over the coffin that is this 2023-24 season.
Yeah, it is quite literally our last opportunity to keep our hopes alive, albeit they're very, 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 very slim hopes alive of staying in the Premiership this season. And to be honest, as soon as the results came in at the weekend, I thought it was a nailed-on certainty that we were going to be playing Ross County in that first game at our place. I mean, we've not got the better of them this season. The draw up there, I think you can turn round and say that we stole a point up in Dingwall at the start of the season. I think you could probably say the same for Ross County coming to our place in January. They probably stole a point in terms of the pattern of the game, and probably our biggest opportunity to get back in our relegation scrap. We failed up in Dingwall the last time we were up there, albeit pulling back to 2 each late on and then conceding that late goal. That was, I have to say, a right sickener in terms of our hopes of staying up after giving the fans a little bit of hope when we went up to Dingwall. I don't know how to look at this game. There's a bit of me that you quite often see teams who are in this position, they almost have like one last hurrah where they stave it off maybe a week or two and pick up a couple of results which just kind of delay the inevitable. Whether we manage to do that remains to be seen. Ross County are hot on the heels of St Johnstone in terms of trying to get out of that relegation playoff place, and obviously are coming off the back of probably the worst thing for Ross County is actually a 2-week break off the back of that Rangers result at the weekend, where I thought they were excellent from the bits and pieces that I did see of the game, especially second half. The response at the start of the second half was magnificent, and they actually played some very good football, especially for their third goal. But away from home, Ross County haven't been particularly effective. 1 win, 5 draws, 11 defeats away from home this season, just 8 points. Believe it or not, we're the only team that have gained less points than them away from home this season with 6. But yeah, I think
we're the only team who's conceded more than them.
Exactly, which somehow will not be a surprise that we are below them in the league table when you look at the league table and 12 points adrift. But yeah, kind of pretty obvious who the main threats are for Ross County. Simon Murray's been very effective for them this year. He's managed to get 11 goals, a few of them against ourselves this season as well. He's also chipped in with 4 assists, as has Euan Danda, who's going to be moving to Hearts in the summer, but he's kind of the playmaker. I always talk about he's got a very cultured right foot in terms of his delivery and things like that, so it's something you need to be very wary of. But their response since Don Cowie's taken the job, almost thought the best thing happening for us this season was Derek Adams. It almost got us back in touch with them, but they did make that decision to bite the bullet with Derek Adams and Don Cowie, who's a bit of a legend up there, especially if you speak to the guys who do the county corner. You know, he's a local lad, he's a player there, he's been assistant manager, and now he's kind of stepped in. I don't know if he's a permanent appointment or if it is just till the end of the season, but I can imagine if he keeps him up, he'll be well in the running to get the job full time. But they've managed to get 3 wins, 2 draws in his 10 games in charge so far. 2 of those wins being victories against Hearts and Rangers as well, which are pretty impressive. The other one coming against ourselves. But as I say, they've not achieved an awful lot on the road since he's come in as well. So maybe that's a little glimmer of hope for us going into this game. But yeah, there's not been a great deal to separate the two sides when it has come to the head-to-heads this season, other than that late winner up in Dingwall recently. But you just want, as a Livy fan, you just want the players to come out with a bit of pride and try and salvage something from the game that even just staves it off another week. You just want to see a little bit of fight, because unfortunately we've not seen enough of that this season, and it's something we've become very accustomed to with this with this football club since kind of going down to League One. It's the fighting character that they show, the battling qualities that they show, and I'm really just hoping we can give the fans some sort of little lift in these last 5 games to try and generate some sort of positive atmosphere going into the championship next year, because I do still think that's inevitable. But yeah, I just kind of hope the players can do something positive when we come to play County next weekend.
You're going to be shocked, Euan. I'm finding it hard to get myself up for this one. We're not going to win the next 5 games.
No, I'm not saying we are. You know.
Yeah, no, exactly. Like, and Ross County aren't going to lose the next 5 games either. So it's like, I'm just, yeah, like it's just going to happen and stuff like that. I do completely agree though that these last 5 games is to show something, and I guess for the players as well who may still be under contract and stuff like that, to play for, if they want to still be here, then show us what you're actually capable of and stuff like that. I just don't have any confidence in it, to be honest with you. Just like everything else this season, it's just going as catastrophically bad as it can, to be honest. That's encapsulated by the fact that Ross County have just beat Rangers for the first time as we head into the split, to make it then that we can get relegated in the first game of it, which, very much sums it up for me. Again, we've already accepted this kind of fate and stuff like that. Basically just kind of waiting for the season to be over, in all honesty. But yeah, I guess we'll be there for potentially the last time as officially statused Premiership club.
As you say, it's very difficult to get up for the game, with the inevitability of being relegated. It's not as if it could be between one or two teams going into the last game of the season. You can have a little bit of hope. It's like the clock's ticking and you're just waiting on it coming. But it's whether we, as I say, can almost show that last hurrah kind of mentality and try and go out fighting a little bit. And that's all I'm hoping for with the team, is that they go into the game and just show a little bit of character, a little bit of fight, and just, as I say, some professional pride. They're not going to.
Quite a lot happen where a team does get relegated and then they do suddenly start performing a little bit better from that. Hopefully that might end up being the case, because you like somewhat of a bright spark to kind of go out for. Now we've probably mentioned that though, it's destined to go the complete opposite, and we're going to get a couple of scuddings. We've got Motherwell away, which I've already just completely
written off.
I'm not even going to acknowledge that. Like, that's a disgrace. Like, can we just give them the 3-0 win already? Because I don't think Andy should have to go through that.
Oh dear. So you're really confident going into this one.
I just think give a fuck you, to be honest.
That has been your overriding
Yeah,
between January and now, hasn't it? I just don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
In terms of looking at,
I'm still there on the Saturday like a clown.
In terms of looking at how we're going to set up for the game, I guess again it's going to come down to who's available. I believe the manager's giving players a bit of time off this week, almost just a little bit of recovery time.
Well,
If it was up to me, they wouldn't be getting any time off at this moment in time. They'd be in doing double sessions every day. But they would be in doing double time, as you say, cleaning the stands, cleaning the toilets for what they've produced this season. But I believe that the manager has given them time off. I think it's more just out of necessity for recovery, in terms of to get bodies back in for these last few games of the season. But for me, I just want to see a team again with a bit of attacking threat. We have got that in recent weeks with kind of our front four as such. Hopefully we can get another couple of bodies back defensively. For me in particular, in the full-back areas.
Are we signing anybody now?
Are we allowed to make any signings, emergency loans, anything like that? But yeah, just that's kind of what I'm hoping for, is a couple more bodies back in the defensive area, probably mostly in those full-back areas, in order to kind of make us just a little bit more functional, I would say. Thanks for that input there.
Yeah, I think the issue as well is that you're looking at it as well, that Yengi's going to be suspended. if we don't get any extra bodies back, we're literally going to be so hamstrung that, if we get any injuries during the game, we're going to be absolutely screwed. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's some random kind of youth players wind up on the bench and stuff like that if they're not on loans already to other teams. But you look at that on Saturday there, you only had Jack Hamilton, who I believe is kind of going through a fitness kind of issue right now as well. Sangari, Carson, and Bruce Anderson, and Stephen Bradley, who I think got injured in the warm-up. So God knows what's going to happen. You add Yengi being suspended to that as well. Who knows, man? It's just so hard to get up for this kind of game. There's just no optimism really coming from anywhere. I think we would maybe try used to be that kind of thing, but I think even we're just scunnered at this point as well.
Yeah, I mean, as you say, Yengi being suspended makes it a pretty straight swap. It'll be Bruce Anderson. And has that maybe changed our approach in terms of how we play a little bit? Yengi's more likely to go and hold the ball up, bring others into play. Bruce isn't, as much as I thought part of his game had progressed in his first season in that regard. He's not one to go and link the game the same way, albeit he does have a decent track record of goals against Ross County.
If you go back and play like we did in that first season that Bruce was there, then there's no issue, to be honest with you. You've seen what happens when you get him service, and I think that there is players who can't get him service. We've just completely neglected that, though, and Bruce has probably got to be, in my opinion, probably one of the most squandered players that this club's ever had. You look at that first season that he had, to not kind of capitalise on that is ridiculous. But yeah, hopefully it'll maybe make us rethink a kind of the patterns of play and stuff like that. I don't think it will, to be honest with you, Euan. I think we're still going to punt it up to him and have him fight against Jack Baldwin and stuff like that, which is, sensible, I guess. But we can only try what we can, and it's too late for us to be hanging all of our hopes onto this and stuff like that, I guess, as well. So maybe there's a little bit of freedom that they'll take from that, where we'll actually start playing a little bit more football that suits the personnel that we have.
Okay, Angus. Prediction time. What are we going for?
1-1.
1-1. Which
Would that
does
still relegate us?
No, not mathematically.
Oh,
We'd be 12 points adrift. But the goal difference would pretty much all but seal it.
Yeah, I did say we're not going to win 5 games in a row. 4 on the rows coming.
I'm going with the last hurrah mentality. I'm going for a win.
Ooh.
I'm going to go for a 2-1 Livy win. And it's going to be that last hurrah mentality I'm talking about. And we're just going to delay the inevitable and somehow manage to get some fans' hopes up that we can go 5 wins on the bounce and close the gap.
The forum is going to be in pandemonium. We can do this.
I'm going to go for a 2-1 Livy win. And do I believe it? Not really. But I'm living in hope that we can just show a little bit of professional pride going into these last few games. That's it for this week's episode of Talk Livi. We really appreciate you tuning in every week, and we'd love to hear your feedback as always. You can leave us a review on iTunes or drop us a message on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram.
As Euan said, we're on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, so simply search Talk Livi to find us. You'll find all the links to our weekly episodes on there, and any shares and likes are always appreciated. All our episodes are available on the usual podcast streaming sites, including iTunes and Spotify. We're also on YouTube, and we'd love for you to subscribe to the channel. If none of those options suit you, all you have to do is head to our website, talklivipodcast.libsyn.com, where you'll find every single episode we've done over the last few years.
That's it for this week, and thanks to all our listeners for tuning in as always. And let's hope a week on Saturday we can delay the inevitable and survive for another week in the Scottish Premiership.
West Lothian, West Lothian. when you score. Livingston, oh Livingston, the Armonville Lions roar. Livingston, oh Livingston, we realise our vision. Livingston, oh Livingston, into the